make this move down to 145 pounds. I guess first of all, did you make any practice cuts, or will you be going down to 145 for the first time when you cut down to that weight on January 13th?
No practice cuts. I was feeling confident that I could make the weight and get down. My last 2 camps I've done, I've gotten down and done them at like 163. So I feel like if I can do a camp for that at 55, then I should be able to get down to 45, no problem.
One question that is always asked of you fighters when you decide to go down a weight class is, when was the last time you weighed that amount? You always hear that question. When's the last time you weighed 145 pounds? I asked you right before we started taping this. I remember you wrestled in college, but I didn't know what weight it was at. It was actually at 165. So I'm guessing it's been a minute since you weighed 145 pounds in your life.
Yeah. Well, I played football my freshman year of college, and I was weighing, close to 200 pounds then. So my weight really fluctuates and goes down a lot depending on the sport. But the last time I was at 145, I was 13, like 12. It was my freshman year. I wrestled 145 my freshman year of high school.
After making these adjustments in your lifestyle and the way you feel in camp, is this a weight that you are sure 100% that you want to stay at? Or is this more of switching things up? Let's move down to 145, but who knows? Maybe I'll be back up at 155 in my next fight. How hard is the commitment level right now?
I'm all in. I'm all in at this weight class and this weight right now. I want to get up to the title and take that title away from Max or Frankie or whoever has it at that point. And then I'll try to maybe I'll think about coming back up to 55 to hold 2 of them. But for now, I'm focused on 145 pounds. And if a big fight presents itself at 55, then I'll go back up.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're very committed to the 145-pound division. And let me change gears a little bit here. Talk about St. Louis, because you fought a lot there in Springfield before you got to the UFC, and you've basically fought in your UFC career everywhere but St. Louis. I mean, you've been around the world, you've fought all around America, and now here you find yourself essentially coming home. So why don't you talk a little bit about what it means to you to be fighting essentially a hometown fight, and also how you see St. Louis as a viable UFC market?
Yeah, it's incredible. I'm really excited that the UFC finally is coming to the best sports city in the country. I definitely think we're overlooked. We have a great baseball team, great hockey program, and now we're bringing the UFC for the first time there. That's incredible for the city. And I'm trying not to get caught up in too much of going home and finally fighting in St. Louis, because I don't want to lose focus on the fight. And, I'm coming into town to take care of business and get a win. I'm not coming in to see family or friends or hang out and have a good time. It's like, no, it's business 110%. And then we can have fun.
Have you been getting a lot of requests? I mean, I'm sure you get a lot of requests for tickets and stuff like that. How do you manage that? Do you just say, hey, man, talk to somebody else, or, I'll deal with this later? How does that work? I'm very fortunate and blessed to have a good group of friends and family that all took the stress off my shoulders, and all took that impression. They're handling it all for me. So if anybody has questions, they go right to my best friends and my family, and, they just all want me to focus on the fight and what I need to do to win.
How often do you go back to St. Louis, Michael? Were you just there for the holidays, or has it been a minute since you've been back?
Yeah. Actually, I missed the holidays. I've been in training camp, and you guys know how that is. Holidays really, they tend not to exist in the middle of training camp. So, I missed out on all the Christmas dinner and the Thanksgiving dinner, but, my mom came down. So, I rarely get back home to St. Louis. I'm always busy training, helping the other guys, and I'm, busy, trying to complete my goal.
And talk about, we've obviously you're excited about where the fight is taking place. How about the opponent, Darren Elkins? He's on a nice winning streak. When you decided that you were going to go down to 145, or at least you were talking about it seriously, you were calling out some of the biggest names there. You wanted to fight Cub Swanson. You wanted to fight Jose Aldo. Darren Elkins, was that an exciting opponent to agree to in St. Louis?
Yeah, I asked for the toughest. And one of the most difficult people to fight in that division. And, my answer's been heard. They gave me one. He's very tough. He's durable. He's been around. He's been in the UFC for quite some time, since I was an Ultimate Fighter. So he might not have the big name or the clout that all the other guys hold, but he's just as tough as anybody in this division.
Is that when you say tough? Are you referring to he's tough, skill wise, that he presents challenges, or when you say tough, you mean he's just a tough, durable guy? Because I think that's a big part of his reputation, right?
Yeah, and that's what it is, and he's he's not gonna shy away from that. That's what he is. He's not the most technical guy or the most skilled guy, but he's very tough. And that gets him wins, and it gets guys in bad positions. And what I need to focus on, and when I get him in a bad position, to stay calm and relaxed, because that's where he fights. That's where he's good at. Just like somebody's good at wrestling or striking, he's good at being tough and taking punishment and fighting back.
Michael, you found yourself in many different situations in your UFC career. You're going down to featherweight now. You've had extensive winning streaks. You've been in main events. Now you find yourself having lost 4 of the last 5, hitting the reset button, going to a new division. How do you manage that mentally, and do you feel any pressure at all with that?
No pressure. I'm not thinking about, my last 5 fights or, what I've done. I know that I'm not in a very good position right now because of the losses that I've taken. But on the other hand, I also know that those losses came really close, really, really close, even though it doesn't count. Some things happened. It didn't go my way, and I ended up losing. But fight of the year candidate, another guy was, the best lightweight in the world with Khabib. So it's just about me finding my focus and really hitting my stride. So this is just a roller coaster, one big journey. So, I'm on the down slope right now, and I'm coming up.
Yeah, Michael, I would agree with everything that you just said about those fights, is that, something happens just slightly different here or there, and you haven't lost 4 of your last 5 fights. I wonder, when you go back and look at those types of situations, are you able to identify why you came up short in those fights, or is that just the name of the game? That's the business. Sometimes, it's a coin flip and you come out on the losing end. Which side of that are you on?
Oh yeah, I've studied those fights and watched them numerous times. I've realized the mistakes I've made, and the big one in both of those fights, my last 2, is not staying focused and composed and rushing myself. Not getting comfortable. So one big thing, me and my coaches and my team has been working on this camp, and my comeback is me really staying composed and focused, and knowing to strike or when to strike and when to get out and use my speed and my advantage, instead of, over-rushing myself.
You fighters don't always appreciate this, but I'm a fight reporter, so I'm going to ask you to go ahead and look past next weekend and say, if you get a big win in St. Louis, your hometown, let's say you finish Darren Elkins, what do you think is next for you? I mean, you were calling out the biggest names of the division before you even dropped down here. After a win over Darren Elkins, who will you be calling out? Who's interesting to you?
I'm looking for the number 1 contender fight, or a title fight. I've just spent my time and paid my dues in this lightweight division. I fought everybody in the top 10. That's not my intentions at 45. I'm not intended to go in here and fight 1 through 9 and then work my way up to a title fight. I want to come in here and beat a guy that's already in the top 10, that's on a great win streak, make a statement, and then get in there and get a number 1 contender fight or a title fight.
Frankie Edgar or Max Holloway? Who do you think's standing there when you reach the top?
I can't wait to see that fight. I'm going to say Frankie. I've always been a fan of Frankie. I've loved watching him fight, and he's on a different level, and he's on a different level that I don't think Max has seen yet. I think Max has gotten away with, beating Jose Aldo that really wasn't in the game, and then he defended against the Aldo that really didn't really care about fighting, looked like to me. So I think he's gotten off on these 2 last fights pretty easily.
Yeah, are you happy that the featherweight championship has moved on from Conor McGregor, or do you sort of still wish that he was in the mix because you would have loved that fight?
Oh, man, he's still in the mix for me. Like I said, this isn't a really permanent move. 45, 55, he's not too far. He's just doing this thing. But, no, I'm glad it's moved on because it gives other people chances to shine and opportunities, like a Brian Ortega, who just had a big win over Swanson, or these other guys. Max Holloway gives him more time to shine. So I'm glad he's moved on and he's not taking the spotlight from the other fighters that deserve to be put in that position.
Michael, this might sound like a weird question, but you have expressed, confidence in getting down to 145 pounds. You said you only have 12 pounds to go, which I think at this point out from the game is a great number to be at. Are you nervous at all when you think about the week of the fight and having to cut those extra pounds, those late pounds, right before that Friday morning weigh-in? Does that make you nervous at all? Does it make you apprehensive?
I have nightmares about it every night. I have nightmares. You have no idea. My first fight at 55, I got stuck trying to lose the last 3 pounds, and I couldn't get them off. And that's what I keep having flashbacks and memories of, getting down to 45. What if I get stuck? What if I get stuck at 47, 48, and I just can't get these pounds off? But, I'm glad I have a great support team, and my coaches are going to be there with me to make sure I make that weight.
So what did you do? That story that you just told when you were a little bit over and your body just stopped, what happened?
I was trying to cut them for 3 hours, and I just completely I got down to like a 0.5 over, and luckily the venue was around the corner from the place I was cutting weight. And I walked, and luckily I lost the 0.4, 0.5, and I made it.
Wow. Have you hired a nutritionist to get you down safely to 145?
Yeah. I'm working with the Lockhart group.
Okay.
Harvard and George Lockhart, so those guys have, they got me on a very great diet plan, and I have so much energy, and, it's like a new life. I'm so much more motivated to get into this.
Well, I keep saying 145, but I should probably say 146, right? Are you going to make that championship weight? Are you going to be one of those guys that proves a point on your first trip down to a new weight class?
Yeah, who knows? Definitely 46 is the goal, but I'm never one to shy away from overachieving your goals. So if I hit 45 on the scale, then I hit it.
There you go.
144.5, just to prove a point, right?
Yeah, if they pay me extra, then I'll do 44.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, I'll get an extra 20%. They should make that a new rule. If I come in a little under, maybe 20%.
There you go. We'll pass it along. We'll see if the UFC is agreeable to that. Hey, last thing I wanted to ask you about, I think the MMA world is buzzing a little bit about Khabib's performance against Edson Barboza. And I'll be honest with you. I kind of made a joke, maybe a little bit at your expense. I think you'll be able to appreciate it. But I said that during that fight, I said Michael Johnson is probably somewhere, rolled up and shaking, because he's having flashbacks to what happened in that fight. And we all know that night was not your night in New York. And I'm wondering what you thought of Khabib's performance. And also, we talk about just how dominant that is and how demoralizing it can be to an opponent. How long did it take you to mentally get over the performance that Khabib had against you in New York at UFC 205?
Oh, I was over it right when I walked in the backstage.
Really?
Like over it as in to the extent of not letting it stick to me and irk me. I went to the back knowing what I had to do for that not to happen again. And, it just pushed me and motivated me even more. Now, watching the fight, I definitely wasn't curled up under the sheets. I was like, damn, I know how that feels. Try to get up,
yeah.
and you can't go anywhere. And I'm telling people, trust me, he's trying. It's a lot harder than what it looks like. But, he did his thing. That's what he's great at. But I wish he would have comfortably stood up with me like he did with Edson for a little bit. Then we'd be talking a different story.
Yeah. Well, you think he?
I don't see how they consider Edson the best striker in the game, and he let Khabib stand up with him.
You think he ends up fighting Conor? You think the sports world ever sees Nurmagomedov versus McGregor?
No, I think Conor knows what's going to happen in that fight.